I always tell moms, especially, to know the season you're in and to be honoring of that season. Because if you have young kids, that season is different. It's punctuated with a lot of needs. If you were to get in your car and it says on there, you've got 32 miles until you run out of gas, and you're going somewhere and your appointment's 41 miles, there's no way you're going to go in that car and go, I'm just going to chance it today. For me, entrepreneurship, writing, creating, finding joy, writing these books has been like stopping at the gas tank, putting in the gas, taking care of myself. And as a result, the journey has become better.
Hey everyone, it's Tamara Thompson with Broadcast Your Authority, and I'm super excited and grateful for our next guest who flew in today. And I love having people on the show that have unique, strong, and powerful stories. And Rachel Marie Martin believes in the power of the human spirit to overcome, to thrive, and to find deep joy. And because of that, she pours out her heart via these platforms. She is the writer behind the site findingjoy.net and the author of both Mom Enough and The Brave Art of Motherhood. She's also the founding partner in Audience Industries, a company designed to train and equip entrepreneurs in their ventures. Her articles have been translated in over 25 languages, which is incredible. I think I maybe can speak 1.5 myself. Her site reaches millions of visitors per month, and she has a robust, engaged Facebook community. I know I've checked out her Facebook page, which has millions of followers, and she is super, super incredible. We're actually going to be sharing a little bit more today about her new book coming out called Get Your Spark Back. So those of you that are watching, we'll share a little bit more about this book in the interview, but I'm just giving you a heads up that this is a must read and a must buy right now. Her content has been featured in the Huffington Post, the Today Show, Star Tribune, Tiny Buddha, iVillage, Stuff New Zealand, John Tesh, Pop Sugar, and so many more. That's a long list of accolades. This is incredible. Beyond that, she's a mom to 7 and calls Nashville, Tennessee home. So I'm super excited to introduce Rachel to you today. Thank you so much for coming in from Tennessee.
I'm here. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you.
It's probably a little bit hotter here in Vegas, or is it hotter over there?
No, I'm going to tell you, you're right. It's a dry heat here, but there it's that humidity where you walk outside and you're instantly sweaty. So
I have a cousin that just recently moved to Tennessee, and she says that they love it for her family there. So she's like, you guys should come visit, but come in the fall.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I used to live in Minnesota, so I would tell people it's great in the summer, and then in the winter, you just got to leave.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for traveling in. We really appreciate it. We love the studio here in Vegas. First off, just tell us really about your backstory. I know a little bit about your backstory. It's super incredible about how you've gotten on this path, helping build this huge community, talking to mothers, entrepreneurs. Share us a little bit more about your story.
Okay, I would love to. So I always go back to when I was a kid, growing up in Minneapolis. And when I was there, my dad bought one of the first computers, a Texas Instruments computer. Not from Best Buy, but from some guy's house. We went into the room, his house, and in the kitchen on the top shelf were the monitors. My dad's like, I'll take that one. I'm like, what is this? Well, he taught me to code. A couple days after that, he brought a book, taught me how to code, where you'd string a line of code, and then it would, like, if you made a mistake, the whole thing would blip, 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 blip. It'd take forever. That was cool. I learned to grow up with computers, loved them. Remember in college when they said you need an email address, and then I got the AOL floppy disk that we thought was the internet, and you're like, you've got mail. I'm like, what is this? This is amazing. Now I'm like, oh, no more mail. But grew up like that. And then in the 2000s, I joined Yahoo Groups. And in Yahoo Groups, people said, well, why don't you start a blog? We like to hear what you write. And I thought, well, I like writing. I really enjoy encouraging people. And during that time, I had heard a speaker who inspired me to start taking back my life. I remember sitting in the auditorium thinking, wow, I want to do what she does, because she just put this spark of hope in me. And so for me as an entrepreneur and as a writer, it became this like trifecta of moments of loving technology, loving computers, understanding them, loving to write, and then having a passion for encouraging women on what to do. So in 2008, I started finding joy, not knowing where it would go. And today I've written, this is my third book, and I absolutely love what I get to do, being a writer, being an encourager, and just meeting and kind of inspiring women all over the world to say, you know what, I'm worth it. I'm going to live this life with great joy.
Well, I just am fascinated because you talk about training entrepreneurs. Like, what exactly does that mean?
Well, so here I am, like as an entrepreneur. And what I did is I built this Facebook community, and I built an audience that's super, super loyal to me. Like, I will have audience members that will be like, this looks like this sounds like you're writing. And I thought, wow, if they can pick out something else from somebody else and say, it sounds like you, I've created this voice. Well, what ended up happening was around 2011, people started asking me, how are you doing this? I want to learn what you're doing. And I've always had this posture of living, thinking like, I don't need to keep everything to myself. If we can keep spreading light and spreading joy, then we can make this world a better place.
Yes.
So with my husband, Dan Morris, and we started this company, Audience Industries, and we really equip bloggers, podcasters, anyone in that entrepreneurial space to take it from this idea, a hobby, to a business. How do you do that? And for me specifically, people would say, well, how do you create an audience? How do you create an audience that absolutely loves you and that rallies behind you? And one of the things that they always go after is with Facebook. So my page is over 1 million people that follow, but I've never paid Facebook, and never once. But now I'm in the spot where Facebook pays me, which is pretty darn nice, I'm going to say. But they just want to know, how do you create an audience? And that's what I really think I'm an expert in. I'm really proud of that understanding of audience building.
That's amazing, because that is a hard skill. Right. Especially if you're a writer. Usually writers are introverts.
Right.
And so then they want to get their writing spread, because I'm a writer as well. And so most writers are in their room, and you actually, so here I am, a little writer, and I'm like, but I want to share my writing more. They're going to actually come to you, and you are going to take, again, I'm making generalizations, but an introvert who's writing, who has a desire to get out there, and you're going to show her or him step by step how to do it. That's amazing.
I appreciate that. I do. I will tell you that I love speaking. That is a part of myself. I always call myself the extroverted introvert.
Sure.
Like, I love that time alone, but you put me in a crowd of people or with a microphone, I'm like, this is awesome.
Because you're talking about something that you love,
right?
You're passionate about, and
right?
You can do that,
right?
Do you find that most of the people that come to you relate to you or your story with having the children and your struggle? That kind of was what drew them to you?
I really believe it was the authenticity. So when I started online, it was in the, I would say those early ages of entrepreneurship, but also social media. Like, I started on Twitter. There really wasn't. I mean, I hard-coded Facebook onto my page. I figured out how to do the Facebook like button. And in fact, I always tell people, like, you should just try, because my very first Facebook post, which couldn't be better, was, I think I'm going to give this Facebook thing a try. And I'm like, wow, I look back at that I'm like, you go, girl. You had no idea.
Yeah.
But do you still get that organic growth now? Because I hear that a lot from people that they're like, gone are the days when you can do organic growth for, with your
that
audience.
Authenticity is the only, if you're authentic,
right,
you're going to become a billionaire.
So I don't know if you've heard the same thing, but do you find that's still a possibility almost?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Like anybody can start at any time. And I always think that you got to look at who's telling you this.
Right.
Like the person that's telling you Facebook organic reach is dead is not dead on their own platform. They're getting a ton of views right there. Yes. They're disproving their own thing about Facebook at that point.
I love it when people say, don't do social media.
Right.
And they're advertising on social media.
Right.
It's like, really?
Right.
Well, really? I don't think you're, okay.
Right.
But you have how many kids?
Well, okay, this is a part where people are like, what? So I have 7 biological kids of my own. And then I have 4 bonus kids because I was remarried in 2020, right before the world shut down.
Wow.
And then we have 2 in-law kids now. Like, now I'm a mother-in-law. And and then we'd have thought, our life isn't busy enough. Let's get a rescue dog. So we have that too.
No.
So how many kids do you live with you?
7 plus 4.
Yeah, but they're grown. They're grown.
Okay,
now. They're grown. The youngest that lives with us is almost 15 now. And so when one gets to the point where they're like walking down the graduation thing, and when they flip the tassel, my husband and I high five each other. So
absolutely.
Yes, it is time.
Rachel, you are the ultimate hustler. I just love your story, especially as a single mom. And, Talk to us a little bit more about how you came up with the name Get Your Spark Back, because I know so many women struggle with identity, being a mom,
It is hard.
a wife, a business owner, a hustler, and how do you converge all those worlds together? So what advice do you have for people, and where did this book, inspiration come from?
Well, that's a full circle question, because you were asking about community. So my community, I'm always listening to them. So one of the number one questions I would get all the time was, how do I get my spark back? And I love that.
This was before you had the title.
Before I had the title. Because, when you're going through the title, you're like, what should it be? What should it be? And I really, really listen to them. And what I love about this question more than anything is nobody says, how do I get a spark? It's always, how do I get my spark back? That word back is so powerful. That means they know they've had it.
They've had it.
They want it back, and they want to know how. And because I write in a really authentic, vulnerable spot, they saw me go through the journey. They saw me go, many readers have been with me since 2011, 2013, and they'll go, I remember when you fixed your finances, or I remember when you went through your divorce or your single mom years and all, and then even being remarried. And they see that journey, and they want that. And instead of feeling alone, what I want to do is inspire them. Like, okay, maybe you don't know where it is. Let's find it again, because it's there. Or maybe you don't know how to start, or being in middle age, they think, I don't even know what to do. So I just really want to encourage them to know it's not too late. It is never too late to start, and you can get your spark back.
I love
So
that.
I want to, so I'm new. So I'm in Facebook, and
Right.
I'm like, oh, I hear about your group, and I'm thinking to myself, should I join? What's my experience going to be? What are you going to be sharing in the group? What do you share your personal life? Do you share tips? What do you do inside the group?
I would say I share our soul's journey. Like, that's what I do. My voice to text thing is full, because when I get this inspiration or this thought, I'm like, you know what, record that, because 20 minutes later, it'll be gone. I'll be like, oh, it was so good. But if you're there, I call it a sacred space, because I really think that the internet can be a place that's divisive, and I want a place where women can land without worry about being judged, where they can come with their stories of who they are without being put in a category or somebody power overing them, saying you need to be this way, because I really believe in power under. You support women, you meet them right here, then they can thrive. And we can thrive with different points of views and different perspectives. And at the heart of it, we all really want to live this authentic life. We want to live a life of joy, of purpose, and we want to have that moment where we're like, you know what, I'm fully alive.
And I think that I do find, I'm sure, Caitlin, you probably feel this too with having young kids. You cannot win as a mom.
No.
Regardless of whatever decision. I remember one time somebody asked a question about kids and chores, and I was saying how my big three do their own laundry, and they're like, how dare you?
Right.
And I was like, at first I was like, oh my goodness. And then I thought, if I would have said they had no chores, they would have been like, how dare you?
Right.
So do you feel like it's also like we're kind of put in this position, and how do you address that in your group? And how do you make sure that because what you just said is very powerful, that
Right.
we're there to elevate, not to be like, how dare you?
Right.
How dare you?
Well, I always go back to my best example of that is think about the pacifier aisle at Target.
Oh, my
it's
goodness.
giant. It's an
Yes.
entire row. And then there's choices. And then let's say you decide, and then that young mom is going to decide on a pacifier and get home. And the very first thing she's going to read is, pacifiers are bad. So it's like you're never going to make. So I'm all about make the best decision you can for your family.
Right.
Make it and be confident about it and go forward. And as far as the platform, keeping it this sacred space, I remind women all the time, for most of history, women have wanted to be like, well, we are right now, sitting in front of a camera with microphones, talking, sharing our perspectives. And the best way to honor that struggle, that all of those women, is to be women of community and women that decide, you know, we're going to lift each other up. And it's like kind of that rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're doing.
What about like when you've been growing this community, since you were inspired to write these books, what specific stories or challenges that actually came up that you saw that encouraged you to write that? What was your biggest challenge, but what were other women that were related to
knowing
that?
that they needed it to hear from her.
Right. I would say that most women feel alone despite social media being like, wow, I've got all these Facebook friends. But there's this like, I feel completely alone. And so I really wanted women to know they're not alone. And then what inspired me was people kept asking me, well, how do you do it? And so when you get asked, I would say it's like the universe is giving you a nudge. You either pay attention to what the universe is saying, or you don't. And for me, I shared about my struggles. I shared about being a single mom. I shared about what it was to go through a rather toxic divorce. I went through a really, really challenging estrangement with my oldest son. And I remember sharing, I was on the Today Show, and I was standing there, and my publicist said, let's take a picture of you with the Today Show sign that says, today is, November 9th. And at that moment, I realized this is my son that I was estranged from I was living in Nashville and he was living in Minneapolis. And for me, it was the dichotomy of a high moment coupled with a deeply painful moment because it was his birthday. Oh. And I remember sharing the picture and then writing about it, saying, you know what, this is the real story. Mm-hmm. And the number of women that have said, I'm so grateful for your bravery and your courage to talk about this tough stuff because I know that I'm not alone. And so with Get Your Spark Back, I got to this place in my own life where I was like, well, what's next? Who am I now? Because my life had kind of gotten a little calmer, I'm going to say. I'd gotten remarried and all of that. And I went on this very personal journey about figuring out, well, what's next in my story? And, part of it, I will say, was the approaching 50 was like, whew, what am I going to do now? And I really wanted to go all in on life. And that's what inspired me.
Well, what would you say brings the most joy to you right now, as of today?
Well, besides my family, because I'm going to tell you, my kids, my family, my husband, I'm so happy and so joyful to be able to live that story and to be their mom in like the really good days and the really bad days. I know that I'm the constant for them. But for me, one of the things that has brought me the most joy as an entrepreneur is women that will come up to me saying, I read what you wrote and it changed my life. Or I read what you wrote and it inspired me to do the hard things. Or I listened and I really realized that I am enough and I'm capable. And I mean, it gets me emotional right now thinking about it because these are real people. I tell people that all the time. On the other side, everybody that comments is taking 30 seconds of their 24 hours to write to me about something. And I value that so much. And so when they comment and they tell me that, I'm like, okay, this is what I was called to do.
It's incredible.
So
impacting so many people.
It's so many. It's so amazing. And how do people work with you? Like, so they go, I want to do that. Do you have groups? Do you have classes? Do you have workshops?
Well, my husband and I, we do coach people. We have a group called the Orange Circle, and we work with them one-on-one about how to create it, how to take it to the next level.
Yeah, these are people that already have businesses.
Yeah, they do.
These are people who want to be like momfluencers or those types.
I would say that they're already in the business world because there are many, many amazing people that can help you start. And what I really love is how do you get from that start point to the next place? Because a lot of people start and then there's that plateau and then they don't know what to do next. And I know from my own story of building the business, there are these moments that were plateaus. And I love to figure out, okay, this went viral. How do I recreate it so that the viral thing becomes a normal thing? What was in it? What was the thread that carries it? And then that's what we work with them. Like figuring out your audience, which is fabulous. When you know your audience, you know what to write. And when you know your audience, then it comes from your heart too.
So what would you say to women who want to be in the place that you're at? Because obviously it took a lot of work to get here to start a relationship and get remarried. And I know there's a lot of fear for women who have young kids who are going through a divorce, and the idea of opening up their heart again and running a business is so overwhelming. So what advice would you have on the work that you did to get you all in?
I realized one day driving home that this was about 15 years ago, that if I wasn't going to seek this life of joy, of finding joy and purpose and going all in when I knew not what to do, I would end up bitter. And the idea of becoming bitter was so overwhelming to me because I wanted my kids to have a different story. I wanted them to grow up knowing you can take control of your finances. You can deal with stuff that happens. You can move forward. You can have this great life. But I knew that if I was going to be that example, I couldn't just say it to them. I needed to do that. I needed to actually rise up and do that for them. I always tell moms, especially, to know the season you're in and to be honoring of that season. Because if you have young kids, that season is different. It's punctuated with a lot of needs. And that's a noble thing. But I would like to remind them, like, you have to take care of yourself. You've all heard the put your oxygen mask on first, But the example I will give is if you were to get in your car and it says on there, you've got 32 miles until you run out of gas, and you're going somewhere and your appointment's 41 miles, there's no way you're going to go in that car and go, I'm just going to chance it today. It's not worth it. I'm going to go all the way. So just like that, for me, entrepreneurship, writing, creating, finding joy, writing these books has been like stopping at the gas tank, putting in the gas, taking care of myself. And as a result, the journey has become better.
So let's hear about the book.
Okay.
Tell us more.
Okay. Well, I'm super proud of it. That's very easy to share about because it's relatable right away from the title. And it's really the journey about how do you get your spark back? It answers the questions women have asked me. Like, what if I'm too old? Or what if I don't have money? Or how do I find it? Or what does this even look like? Or how do I need friends? And it just takes them along that journey. And I actually share a lot of my own personal stories in it. I share like that struggle that I had. I share about moments where I've triumphed and moments where I'm like, I don't know what to do next. I really go into detail about what it was like, that journey with my son. And we're at this place with reconciliation. And out of a place of, again, when you can meet somebody in your vulnerable place, then you develop this credibility with them. You develop this part where they're like, okay, she's writing about fixing her finances because she's fixed her finances, because she's called the creditors, because she's dealt with it and she's uncovered all of it. And because of that credibility, I really feel like I'm extending this hand to women to say, you're not alone and you can do this. So this book is that journey of what do you do to get your spark back? And more than that, it's how do you maintain it? How do you live a life like on fire? You know, that girl is on fire. It's that. It's like, how do I do this? How do I live?
Song.
Yeah. How do I go all in?
If you want to sing it, you guys go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody's watching right now. Somebody's watching right now, and they're getting their spark back, and they're so excited. Right. What would you tell them the first step?
The first step is being brave enough to actually say, you know what? I don't have it right now, or I don't know where it is, but I'm going to find it. And then that moment of courage, when you're like, you know what? I'm going to do that. It's huge. It's giant. So I give the example a lot. Like if I'm a runner, so that's my thing where I know. Don't. No. I never thought I could be a runner.
I wish I was.
I know.
Running.
Oh, I know.
I'm like,
I was like, I wish.
On my shoulders, someone chasing me. Yes. I'm running.
I tell people like, I don't run the mile. I don't think I'm going to run 3 miles today. The way that I run is I put my shoes on. No, not here. I do it in Nashville on a treadmill in the summer. But anyway, the first step is to put your shoes on. Yeah. It's not to go. It's not to run 3 miles. It's to put your shoes on. So if you want to get your spark back, the first step is to say, you know what, I don't have it, or I want to get it back, or I want to live fully alive, and then to just decide every day, every single day, every little choice I make changes things. If you do a year of small things to get your spark back, there is no way in 1 year from now you're going to be the same person.
I think the first step is actually for them to get the book.
Order the book. Order the book.
Yes, that is a good first step.
So I could talk to you for hours on this regards. I'm like, let's just continue. But for that, so is your book coming out August 27th?
It is August 27th.
It is. And how can people find the copy of the book? Obviously, we'll put it in the show notes and the description and things like that to help support you. Is there anything else that you would like to add to how they can pick up the book or follow your Facebook, your blog? What's the best way to connect with you?
All right. Well, if you go to my website, findingjoy.net, there's links to buying the book right there, which I'm very grateful. I'm actually super excited for everyone that buys it, because I know it will change their lives. I just like, it's in that pit of me, like, yes, this is it. Otherwise, it's on Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, your independent bookstores.
I'm buying it today.
Thank you.
But Rachel, let me ask you a question.
Right.
For those of us with younger kids, is it on Audible yet? And if not, when will it be?
It will be. And I will, that is a great question, and I love it. So I will record it on Audible, which is actually one of my favorite things to do, is to record the books. Because there is such deep ownership, not even just writing a book is ownership, but when you're recording it and you're hearing it back, you're like,
your emotions in it too.
Like, wow, yeah. So I do get quite. Sometimes my friends are like, I could tell you choked up right there.
But that's important. But that's part of the story, and then you can really see the parts that are so meaningful and sometimes like when you're reading a book, you can't hear. I mean, now I can hear your voice. Right. I met you, but if you've never met the person or heard them, but the Audible, I do like it, especially when the author writes it, when the author reads it as well.
Yeah.
But that's the best way to read a book now is Audible.
It's like listening to a podcast. You can get to know someone if you're listening to an audio podcast and things like that. So, but I'm super, super grateful for you to be here today. It is time for us to wrap up this episode, but you are an incredible person and I'm so happy. And thank you ladies for joining me today.
I second that. She's great.
She's amazing.
Wow, this is awesome.
High five.
I'm going to play this ending for all my kids to hear. And so,
let's play it over again.
So thank you so much for coming in and flying in to joining us. And we're super excited to promote and support your book launch. And anyone listening to this, definitely grab a copy of her book, Get Your Spark Back. Woo-hoo. That's right. It has to be those words. Right. Get your spark back. Get it back on that regard. So anyone watching this show today, feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment, follow Rachel, follow all of our co-hosts. You'll have all the information in the description. We're excited to see you in the next episode.